They have an agenda, and their agenda is to indoctrinate our children into perversion. We are witnessing before our eyes evil Marxists who hate the God of the Bible. They hate truth, they hate morality, and they're doing anything possible to remove God from our culture.
We have never seen, most of us could never have dreamt that they would go this far. So, John, you are going to school boards, and you are, in many cases, reading from the books assigned to children, made available to children. And what the books say and what you say when you read these books is so vile that they try to shut you down in the meeting. They don't want to hear it. And yet this is what is being made available to children. And then they have the nerve to call you the book banning pastor. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So how did you get into this? Because you are heroic, you're brave, you're not afraid to go out there. But how did you get involved in this?
Well, I really just picked up the mantle of my senior pastor, Bishop Patrick Lane Wooden Sr., who also happens to be my father-in-law. Back in the early 2000s, he was going to school board meetings addressing issues pertaining to marriage in particular. They were trying to promote and push upon children that Heather can have two mommies and Jody can have two daddies. And he started going to the school board meetings back in the early 2000s addressing those issues. I've picked up the mantle, and now I'm traveling the country doing the same. I've now spoken in 10 states addressing these issues. I'll be speaking in 20 cities in 2024. I read from books like this book here, entitled George, which is now titled Melissa. The author of this book is an individual who claims that he failed at being a man and a woman. His name is Alex Gino, and this book is published by Scholastic, and Scholastic is the largest publisher in the country for children's books. They were founded in 1920 in Pennsylvania. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, but they are pushing gender confusion upon kids. I went to Idaho and attempted to read from this book, and I was shut down in the matter of 5 seconds. Before I could even read from this book, before the school board meeting started, before they got to the public comments part, a sergeant walked up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Sir, will you come outside with me and have a conversation?" And so I went. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't believe in resisting law enforcement and fighting against them. I'm not a part of the BLM movement. I never promoted defunding the police. I'm a law-abiding citizen. So I go outside and talk to him, and he tells me immediately that, if you start reading from a book or if you get off curriculum, that we're going to remove you from the school board meeting. And I say to myself, wait, how is this possible for me to be removed for addressing something that I believe is a part of curriculum? And so that day I signed up to talk about curriculum and materials. And they're telling me that books in the libraries do not pertain to it. And so I go back into the school board meeting and I begin to, do what I came for, and that was read from the book. And they shut me down in the matter of 5 seconds. They told me that books don't pertain to curriculum and materials and that I have to stick to their agenda. See, that's the problem. They have an agenda, and their agenda is to indoctrinate our children into perversion. We are witnessing before our eyes evil Marxists who hate the God of the Bible. They hate truth, they hate morality, and they're doing anything possible to remove God from our culture. And so I'm fighting what some might call an uphill battle. And though at times it may seem like that, but I know that at the end of the book, we know in Revelations that we overcome Satan by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. We are fighting on the side of victory, and we will be victorious. And Eric, I've seen around this country where at times where they've tried to resist me, we were able to have triumphs. I went to Florida and read from a book there entitled 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. And the sheriffs kicked me out of that school board meeting from reading from a pornographic book. But those books were removed from that school district.
Okay.
Even in this, in this past,
go ahead. I want to hear you say. Sorry.
Yeah. Even in this past election, I was able to assist in flipping 2 school boards that now lean 8-1 conservative. And so I'm fighting against these issues every week, every month. And I am also seeing triumphs. And there are people who are coming against me and they are trying to weaponize law enforcement against me. And I will not be silent and I will not be canceled.
Well, I got a lot of questions I want to ask you. The first question is, how is it possible? In other words, in America, it's one thing for certain people to hate you and hate me and to hate our point of view on whether pornography and sexual themes should be introduced to children. I get that. But how is it that sheriffs, whole school boards are against you speaking up? In other words, common sense America would be cheering you on or at least giving you a hearing. So how is it possible that you're going into these situations that are so filled to the brim with hostility to you and to biblical views, to traditional American views? In other words, it seems like, you know, it would make sense if you were in China and the regime controls everything. But in America, how does it make sense? Because your average parent would, of course, agree with you. So how are these things kind of set up with such hostility to what you're saying? It on some level, I can't make sense of that. How have they taken over so thoroughly that you're the enemy when you walk in the door?
Well, there are school board leaders who sit on these school boards who have special interests. They are beholden to the Democrat Party, and they will do any and everything to push their agenda. I have to be honest when I say that. These individuals have a nuanced viewpoint as relates to the role of the parent and the role of the teacher and or the school board. They believe that they are allowed to co-parent. They believe that it's up to them to decide what a child should engage in, even if it dabbles into something as evil as pornography. It makes no sense. And so I read from these books, and the moment I start sharing the words that are in these books, they shut me down and they tell me that it's inappropriate. And that's the point, Eric. If it's inappropriate for me to read it in a school board meeting, then we all know that it's inappropriate for a 9-year-old child to read from many of these books.
Well, John, listen, I think most Americans would agree with you, and I think many Democrats would agree with you. In other words, it's one thing to be an unhinged leftist, Marxist, pro-trans maniac activist, but common sense says this is not appropriate for children. That's common sense. That's your average parent. You don't need to be an evangelical, serious Christian. It's a common sense issue. But ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're dealing with right now. We'll be right back talking to John Amanchukwu. Don't go away. Folks, I hate to interrupt, but I just don't want you to miss any of the content we're putting out on here. We've just got some amazing stuff. So would you do yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button so we can make sure you don't miss anything? I promise you, great stuff coming up. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Why are others not doing this? I mean, this is a level of wickedness. Pornography and sexual content, vile. Frankly, it's not even just pornography. It's gay pornography, trans stuff, like stuff that no kid should be exposed to. How is it that there are not more with you doing this? I mean, I would think that there would be pastors all over America doing this. Are they being silent in the face of evil, which is my suspicion?
Well, I believe that you're quite right about that. You make that clear in Letter to the American Church, your book and your documentary. Part of it is that pastors are silent. Part of it is that pastors are afraid and that they're nuanced. They sit in the seat of neutrality. I believe that many pastors today are more beholden to the Democrat Party than they are the cross of Christianity. I believe that there are many pastors who are more comfortable with saying nothing than picking a side, which is a great travesty towards the American church today. When you come to church, you expect the preacher to tell you what thus saith the Lord. That's it. You don't expect them to find a way to not say what's right and what's true as a means of not getting in trouble with who, you know? At the end of the day, pastors are should be most concerned about getting in trouble with God rather than a parishioner or someone that's on their board. Who cares what one of the wealthy board members thinks about them saying the truth about homosexual marriage or putting pornography in the public school system or the topic of abortion? We could care less. But what I am seeing steadily as my videos go viral, I have over 8 viral videos that have amassed over 350 million views and counting.
Holy cow. What? That's insane.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Over 350 million views. And I'm doing this by and large with a small crew. It's me oftentimes and my wife and my kids that are helping me. We're doing this as a small unit, but we are having national impact. You want to know why? Because the truth works just like that. When the truth is released, darkness has to fall back. Darkness has to shrink back. And what I'm seeing now, slowly but surely, that pastors are now contacting me and saying, hey, preacher, how can we get engaged in what you are doing?
Oh.
We see the impact that you are making. Our church wants to come alongside you and bring you to our state, bring you to our city and speak to our school board meeting. So that's taking place. I'm hearing from parents every day who are saying, you know what? I've been going to our school board for the past 3 years and they won't hear me. But we believe that if you come to Las Vegas or Idaho or Florida or Colorado or Texas or California or Detroit or Chicago, we believe that they will hear you. And so I've become a champion for parents and for children and for school board leaders. I've become the voice of many school board meetings around the country. Some regard me as the leading voice speaking out nationally. I don't know of another individual who has gone and spoke at 10 school board meetings nationally. And what I'm asking for individuals to do is, number one, continue to pray for me and my family. Pray that the Lord will grace me with the anointing to combat the demonic attacks that come, as relates to the attacks of law enforcement that's being weaponized against me. Once again, I'm a law-abiding citizen, but what I'm seeing is that steadily law enforcement are increasing their tactics and trying to find ways to shut me up and silence me. And I believe that I'm nearing my Rosa Parks moment. I'm at that moment, Eric, where they're going to tell me to relinquish my stand at the podium and defraud me of my time. I get 180 seconds to speak. Oftentimes, they shut me down in a matter of 5 seconds. I'm nearing the moment where I'm not going to leave the podium. So in 2024, if you hear that Pastor John Amanchukwu was taken out of a school board meeting in handcuffs, it's true. I would never want to do something like that. I've never been arrested before. I don't go to school board meetings looking for a fight. But that time is coming because I have a right to speak up and address these issues.
Well, listen, you're speaking on behalf of millions.
Scholastic is doing this, and there are schools that can resist it, but many don't want to, because who wants to go against the false triune idol of diversity, equity, and inclusion? You might get labeled homophobic or a bigot or at times like me, a white supremacist. You just never know. There are all kinds of books, not only just the books that push gender confusion, there are books that are geared towards race baiting and race hustling. And so I'm preparing to partner soon with Skytree Book Fairs. That's the organization that is doing book fairs around the country that provides wholesome, age-appropriate books that doesn't seek to indoctrinate or destroy the hearts and the minds of kids. I'm partnering with Kirk Cameron's group, hopefully in 2024. And so we'll bring Skytree book fairs to schools all around the country. We do need to shut down Scholastic. Scholastic has over 100 perverted books that address perversion and things that you do not want a child to see or know. Scholastic supports this. And this book right here that I talked about earlier, the book entitled George, this book, it's about a person who thinks that they're a girl, but it's a boy, and we see this taking place more and more. And so that's even indicative of the fact that it was originally titled as George, but they now title it Melissa. The name of the book changed in 2021 when the author realized that, he was getting some heat for not calling the book Melissa from the beginning. And so this is one big plan to bring about division and disunity and ultimately Marxism. But in order for Marxism to thrive, there must be tension. There's oftentimes this tension of those who are straight versus the alphabet mafia, the LGBTQIA plus community. There's always this tension of whites versus blacks. In order for Marxism to thrive, there must be this tension and divide. And so I believe that Scholastic has drunk the Kool-Aid. I believe that many of these school board meetings, members around the country and board chairmen have drank the Kool-Aid as well, and that they are trying to push intentionally a framework that leads us towards socialism and communism.
No
so
doubt.
I say to the parents out there, it's time for you to be alarmed. If you're not angry about what's taking place, then you are sacrificing your posterity. We need to make sure that at all times, filthy books are not placed before children.